A good man is not a peaceful man or a peaceful person. A good man is a man who is skilled in violence and has the restraint and discipline not to use it.
Welcome to 45 on the Hour podcast. I'm your host, Colt 45, and I'm here with the ninja, the survivor,
Whoa.
the Darce,
The
Darce of all nights,
the Vault 101 dweller. Hello,
the
sir.
Vault
Good morning.
101, the one who just tapped me out like 3 times in a row yesterday. You got me back into the jits.
It's the way it should be.
I know, right? So, guys, we have a phenomenal guest today. One of my brothers, blood brothers. No, he's
Brother in Christ.
brother in Christ.
Right on.
He is a legend by disguise, and I'm super pumped about this one, guys, because this guy has taken me. He was the guy that actually got me really into jiu-jitsu and got me into the next stage of it. He's actually the one that gave me my blue belt with another professor.
You earned it. I didn't give it. You earned it. You earned it.
I know, right? And I just love this dude with all my heart. He's my brother. Even though he lives in Texas, I want to introduce him now. The professor of all professors, Mr. Greg Hamilton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm really honored to be here. And thank you, Colt. Thank you, Eric. It's great to see you guys. It's amazing. I mean, literally, I've known Eric for over 10 years. Probably, I met Eric back in 2013, I believe, and Colt, I met you. I think first I met you was like 2016ish, maybe 2017. So I can be more blessed to have these awesome relationships, and it's all by the grace of God. Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and through jiu-jitsu. So very grateful.
Amen, brother.
Amen. Yeah. Martial arts jiu-jitsu has been good to all of us, and I've known everybody in this room for a minute now, and it's connected us all. We all have our own little path and our own little journey of how we started. Grego, tell us who you are and
background.
We
want to hear a background, brother.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of the background, but I want everyone to hear it. But give us a little bit of details on like where you came from, where you were born, like a little bit of family stuff, maybe some of the struggle, and then kind of lead up to when you kind of started your jiu-jitsu journey and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. My story is definitely a little bit on the unique side. I was born in Moscow in the Soviet Union, and I'm an only child. And I was born during the times of real like socialism and communism and a lack of everything. Where it's and back in Moscow, back in those days, life was hard, and it wasn't very pleasant. I mean, now it's like a beautiful city and all that kind of stuff, but. And back in 1981, my parents immigrated to United States, and we immigrated from Moscow. It was my mom, my dad, my mom's mom, and my mom's dad. So my mom, dad, grandparents, and myself. We went to Italy for about a month and a half, because you had to do that whole immigration process. And then we moved to Los Angeles, which is like the second largest Russian community next to Moscow, probably, I would say, and lived there ever since. 1981, and then in 2019, I moved out to Texas to live the dream, to live jiu-jitsu. And it was definitely quite a change in life, because when I got here, I didn't know English. I was 7 years old, and we moved first and foremost to West Hollywood, which is obviously like where all the Russian immigrants moved to. And it was tough. I didn't know English. I had to start in public school, and it was definitely a tough adjustment. And in
What
1984,
languages do you speak, brother?
well, what?
What languages?
I speak Russian fluent, and I speak English, and I speak like four stripe white belt Spanish.
Let's go. You could
Yeah.
order some tacos when you need to.
Well, yeah. Let's just say if somebody dropped me in the middle of Mexico or any Latin American country, I could probably survive. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and I can count to 10 in Portuguese too. So, but that's
Hey,
all
I
thanks
like that.
to jiu-jitsu.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just curious.
No, and in 1984, we moved from West LA to Tarzana, and pretty much lived in the valley most of my life. And my dad, ever since we stepped foot into the country, was very, let's just say, ambitious. focused on working and on making as much money possible because Russians are a bit on the more ambitious side. My dad's very was very highly educated. My mom was working at that time, and I basically was at home with my grandparents, and just kind of acclimating, learning the language, trying to make friends. But it's tough because my parents kept on moving, and we moved to like West LA, and then we moved to the Valley a couple of years later, and then and then from Tarzana we moved to Woodland Hills like a year and a half later, and then just kept moving. So it was really tough. But Russian parents have a different type of approach to upbringing their children because it's more so like just grow up already and get past this whole inconvenient kid phase, and that's how it was back then. Now it's obviously different. So and then kind of fast forward through high school. In high school, believe it or not, I was bullied because I was tall and kind of not having too much confidence. Is because my parents never really put me in athletics. I started
Okay.
like playing like basketball and stuff, and in junior high, but like high school was tough, and
For those of us who don't know, Professor Greg, like how tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Oh, you're tall and lean.
I'm tall and lean. I'm about like 205, but the maybe thanks to jujitsu, I'm probably 6'4" now because it kind of shrinks you a bit. When I started at my peak, I was about 6'6", and I played a lot of basketball. That was like my go-to sport, and never really did any combat sports or anything. And just kind of went through high school, and through high school, with my friends, started going to LA Fitness and lifting weights, and just kind of gain more confidence because started putting on muscle when I was like 16, 17. You can drive and already kind of just your social life expands. But again, I never really did any type of fighting. But it's kind of like we did messing around. You wrestle with your friends and all that kind of stuff. Do a little bit of boxing here and there, and so I always felt that I could defend myself if I needed to. It's just that you always had this feeling down deep inside that when these certain altercations or you come close to having these physical interactions where there may be a fight, you realize that, man, I hope I don't have to fight because, man, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to get crazy. You know what
Right
I mean?
on.
Because you have no technique. So, and I guess fast forward to when I was 29, is when I started jujitsu, and it was in
Okay.
2004.
So you were a
So
late starter.
very late starter. Yes, I've been actually January was my 21st year anniversary of jujitsu. So I started when I
Wow.
was 29. So don't label me by my age because I drink from the fountain of youth called
There
jujitsu,
you go.
and I don't feel 51. Just for the record, and it's like I like to say because I'm single, so I can say this. I feel as old women tell me they think I look, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. You look wonderful, dude. You look really good. All
I
right.
appreciate it.
This is
Thank you,
I
thank you.
I
So
I
I
would
get like
assume
Wait, so he's
that
gonna be how old?
you gotta he 51. I assume you gotta live the
Jesus,
healthy
bro.
lifestyle. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
yeah. I mean, listen, I have to lead by example,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, there's three priorities in life, and my top three are Jesus is my Lord and Savior, my two daughters, and three, our Jiu-Jitsu Academy, our students, and I have to live the type of life that sets an example. I have to live healthy. I have to be in the best shape of my life, which I am in the best shape of my life. And I have to set an example for all of our students because it's much more than just teaching jujitsu. And we, like I said, we teach much more than just jujitsu through Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, meaning that we teach a lifestyle. We focus on enriching, empowering the lives of all of our students, helping each and every one reach their highest potential, from
Mm-hmm.
kids to teens to adults. And I have a ton of students. I have a lot of law enforcement, a lot of just regular, everyday, just professionals, people, moms, dads, and everybody, how it is. They come in for different reasons why you start jujitsu. Some people, came from an abusive relationship. Some people want to get healthy. Others, want to learn something fun, be part of a community.
Everybody
And,
who looks to join martial arts is seeking something. They're lacking
yeah,
something, right? I mean, you touched
yeah,
on a little bit of bullying.
Or they want to get away from something, right?
a deficiency
Either
somehow,
one,
some
yeah,
way.
they're
Yeah.
You know why
absolutely.
I got into jujitsu?
You had mentioned before you were searching for that brotherhood. You were searching. Well,
Yes.
actually,
Right,
no, no,
but
no. You said you were going to get your.
pills. I was trying to get off freaking taking pills, bro. I
Uh-huh.
was
Oh, I remember you were telling me that.
yeah, my
Yeah, yeah.
back, brother. Remember? I was telling you that I was
Yes,
having like
yes. I
back
remember you.
issues.
You were suffering, bro. I remember that.
I
Yeah.
was suffering mentally, bro, so hard. And then I met Professor
Yeah.
Greg,
Okay.
and that was around. I think I met you just a little bit after that, but the first person I rolled with was Professor Rick,
Yeah,
Rick
that's
Preddy.
That's a heck of a role.
yeah.
That guy
No
is an
thanks.
animal.
Yeah,
That guy was
yeah.
a black belt wearing a purple belt.
He was, and just if you guys don't know about Professor Rick, he's like what 6'5", 6'6",
Two
Yeah, he's a
ninety.
whole other
two
level
sixty.
of physicality.
Yeah.
Yeah, fought and beat up Chuck Liddell in the past. That's a fact.
Yes.
And he was my first roll, like first person I rolled with.
Rolled with a
And I
bear
rolled
the
with
first
the-
time out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, hey, just go wrestle with this bear, for a minute. And I did okay. I remember I was sore as hell after, but I was weaning off of Norco at the time because I was
Yeah, that's a tough one.
yeah. So I got
That's
into it because my back had these back injuries, and I just was suffering so bad. And after I left my past and was trying to just change my life, I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna quit cold turkey, and so I did. I quit cold turkey like the day before jujitsu, and I couldn't breathe, man. I
very
couldn't breathe.
difficult to quit cold turkey. But I'll tell
Yeah.
you, I have experience with students with addiction, and any form of addiction, whether it's substance, whether it's like food or whatever it may be, it's very difficult to quit any form of addiction if you can't replace it with something that is more important than the actual addiction. And oftentimes,
I
jujitsu
like that.
has this beautiful amazing leverage and weight that it becomes so important to you that you're willing to change bad habits into healthy habits and to really kind of focus on living a much more healthy lifestyle, healthy physically, healthy mentally, healthy socially, healthy spiritually. And this is a process,
Mhm.
and that's why it's important to mentor your students and to get to know them. That's one of the most important things in jiu-jitsu, so that you take the time and make the time to get to know the individual. I know all my
Yes.
students by name, and I have hundreds. And it's like, I
Right.
have the best kids instructor. He knows all the kids by names. I don't teach a kids class because I teach adults classes, and I know all our students by names. I know their families. I know a little bit about them, some more, some less, but I always make time to get to know them so I can kind of understand how I can help them and impact them, because it's like in this position, I'm much more than just like a jiu-jitsu instructor. I'm like a mentor, a therapist, a confidant, a friend, and you kind of try to balance it so there's not too much closeness, because familiarity breeds contempt. But at the same time, you're there for them, and they know that you're there for them. And
I
I'm
like how
always available for my students.
yeah, and I love how you touched on that, brother. And I think that's what you do best. And I think that's why you've grown so fast. And you haven't just opened one successful school, you've opened multiple. Like, this guy has taken jujitsu to a different idea for businesses. Like, this guy knows how to build a school, right? And not to
Yeah.
mention, like, Professor Medina is doing extremely well in his school. But I could be the one that says, like someone that's willing to like pay money to someone. Like, I try to look at the instructor, not like even the name that supports the school. I know the name's important. Renzo Gracie has a huge
You buy
name.
into the
Jean
instructor.
Jacques, phenomenal
Yeah.
names. Yeah, well respected people. But I also look into the instructors,
Mhm.
and a well rounded instructor that I don't see bullshit in. That I see like,
Yeah.
okay, that guy, I respect him. I like what he's about. He's not blowing smoke up my ass. Not to mention, like, he's well rounded. I'm looking at him and I'm observing. Typically, when I go to a school, I observe and I'll look at the
Yeah.
individual and I'll be like, okay, we relate on this subject. He actually gives a shit. I can tell
Yes.
when someone cares. And Professor Greg and Professor Medina, you guys actually care. You guys are instructors that actually give a shit. And it's not about the money. And that's why the money just comes, because people buy into the
Yes.
person. People buy into people, not businesses.
Mhm.
And I've said this
Yes.
before. That's what they buy into.
Yes.
People want to support people that they believe in. And you guys
Yes.
do it
Yeah.
well, so well.
Yeah, you follow the one that you believe in. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And you don't. This is not like the jujitsu business. is the wrong business to go into if you really want to focus on making money. It's not why your initial goal should be to open up an academy, because listen, anybody can go get a space, lay out some mats, and have a jujitsu school. Okay. But if you really want to like open something meaningful and impactful, you really have to do it for the right reasons and right goals. And
I love that.
money is not at the forefront. And like you said, Colt, it all comes at the end as a result of you focusing on giving every single student, who obviously is a paying member, way more in use value than the amount of money they're paying you for their tuition. This
Correct.
is the key.
Yeah, and it's invaluable. And I've even talked about this with Professor Medina. I'm like, you're the value, ultimately.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
yeah, having a name backing you, like a big name, definitely helps a lot. Like for
Yeah.
Professor Medina, he has Jean Jacques' name. That's huge. Everyone knows Jean
Yeah.
Jacques. Not everyone technically knows Professor Eric, but they know Jean Jacques. So it's almost like the door. It's like, oh, I recognize that name. And then they see
Yes.
that name, and then they meet you, and then it's just a match made in heaven, right? They're like, wow, you were a Jean Jacques black belt. That's phenomenal. I'd like to learn from you.
Yes.
Plus, I like you as a person. And then the same with
Yeah.
you, right? Renzo Gracie. So you're with Renzo Gracie. Everyone knows Renzo Gracie. And then they kind of
Yes.
find you through that maybe. And then they're like, oh, Professor Greg. I like Professor Greg. He's a cool guy. He's just like me. Boom.
Yeah.
Match made in heaven, right?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you like this, for me, what's most important is that all of my students are plugged in to like a lineage and source jujitsu. So they're plugged into what I call jujitsu from the source. So we are the only Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy in all of North Texas and DFW, Dallas Fort Worth. The Dallas Fort Worth is huge; it's booming and everything. There's like two schools, if not three, down in Austin, and most of them are down in like Houston and in the San Antonio area. And most of them are all started by my good friend and brother Brian Marvin, a huge success story. He's got like, I don't even know, like maybe 10, 15 schools. I didn't even know, lost count. But we're the only one in Dallas Fort Worth. However, when people drive by, obviously they see the name Gracie Jiu Jitsu. I have huge signs, and I have like 80,000 cars driving by a day. We've been blessed by God to have them in an amazing location. But when people come in, like the name will get them through the door. But you are the one who is the very top of this particular, academy. They're gonna stay because of you. They're gonna
Mhm.
stay because the way you make them feel. They're gonna stay because they feel that you are somebody credible, somebody they can trust, somebody that has some kind of at least reputation, that you have experience, you have some sort of reference, and that you've built some kind of a name, hopefully for yourself, that you can use as a form of, I don't know, let's say like a not a resume, but a source of
It's
credibility
your authentic.
outside of the fact. Yeah,
It's your
because like Eric, you had an amazing name, but even before you were promoted to black belt, with all the competitions you had, and and how well you did, and you always and with the
Savage.
LA Jiu Jitsu Club, and
it,
you're just a great guy.
I,
I mean,
I'm
and
very lucky that during my time, I never lacked for authenticity or credibility in my own eyes. Regardless
yeah,
of what, because who am I trying to prove anything to? If you're
yeah,
if you're not satisfied with yourself, then you're always gonna be lacking. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I was just surrounded by killers, yourself included, day in day out. Like what else? What was the alternative? Like if
Yeah,
you're always around lions, you're gonna be a lion yourself.
yes,
And I'm lucky enough that I walk the path, and it's been good to me. You
yes,
touched on
absolutely.
a little bit about not necessarily or looking at jujitsu to be rich, and financially rich. And I
Yeah,
always I always have a little dialogue in my head. Is like, okay, like my bank account might not reflect the value that per se the academy provides, but I'm
yeah,
also rich in the relationships that I've built and cultivated, and the people that I have next to me, that I could pick
yeah.
up my phone and ask friggin' a favor of anybody that I know, and they'll come through. You know what I'm saying? There's not a
Yeah,
financial.
I'm one of them, absolutely. And I look at it like this, and I agree with 100% what you're saying. But that's what makes you wealthy. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? That's what gives you wealth that has no price tag that can be placed on it, because it's earned wealth, because the relationships you've built with people, the impact that you had on people, the impact that they've had on you, all of these aspects, you cannot put a price tag on this. And this is where you're wealthy, because to live a life of service through jujitsu, to have impact on human beings where you're giving unconditionally, not expecting anything in return, and having this incredible impact that you know is going to translate onto all of your students, not only that they're going to improve in jujitsu and all that, but the impact that you will have, and the concepts and principles that they will learn at your academy on the mats will translate into their everyday life. This
Hmm.
is where it's immeasurable.
Try the parlaying your actions on the mat to your outside life and your family
Absolutely.
and how you interact. You know, we always say
Yes.
that if I'm having a bad day or I didn't want to make it to the gym, whatever you got going on in your life, after you've had a good training, you can't even remember the issues you had. You know, you can't
Yeah.
remember the problems. You come back to the world a better person. You know.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we have I always tell our students, I say, look, the hardest thing during the day, especially like for the 6 p.m. class, is to grind out the day, get off work, and just to get to the academy and walk through the door. Everything else is like on autopilot, and you'll leave feeling better than you did when you arrived.
Oh
But
yeah.
I always tell our students, I say, look, you're going to take your backpack full of all the shit and rocks and weight that you accumulated through the day, leave it outside, walk through our doors. This is time that you need to focus on you. That backpack of shit and stress and worries and whatever life's problems, like, it's inevitable. It's going to be there. But I guarantee you, when you leave and you pick it back up, it's going to be a lot lighter to carry. It's going to be a lot easier with the same shit in there, except you're going to feel better because you invested in yourself and you made time for you. And it's vital for your mental health, physical health, spiritual health. You learned, you're excited, sweaty, all that kind of stuff. Now you can go on, finish the day, come back, do it again tomorrow.
Right on. That's the truth. That's what we're all here
Yeah.
for.
It is. I had a couple questions for you, Professor.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to talk about like the background of jujitsu and everything like that,
Yeah.
kind of like the formulation of it. Like from what you understand, why was jujitsu like where did it come from? Do you know all that stuff? Do you know like the history and the background of it?
So
Because they say it's like the
originally,
peaceful man's. What is it? The what is that?
Jiu-jitsu is the gentle art.
The gentle art. There you
Mhm.
go.
a gentle art. Yeah, a good man is not a peaceful man or a peaceful person. A good man is a man who is skilled in violence and has the restraint and discipline not to use it. And that's,
Dang, that's a
I got
banger
that from
right
Jordan
there.
Peterson,
That's
but I've heard it
that's
before,
us, dude.
But from what I understand is that originally jujitsu originated from India, when these Buddhist like monks were like, going and migrating, and then they were going east and towards like China and Japan and so forth, and they were just needed some sort of skills to fight off, attackers, and it was all like wild and crazy back in those days. And then eventually it migrated like, more east, and ultimately wound up in kind of Japan. And then Jigoro Kano in the 1800s took judo, which all of a sudden got a very bad name because judo was used by more of the criminal element in Japan in those days, in the like 1800s, to just fuck people up. You know what I mean? And it got a really bad name. So Jigoro Kano, he took judo and turned it into a more organized type of sport, a little bit more of a family type of environment. And over decades and many years, he kind of he rebranded it, let's just say. So in that aspect, he developed a lot of world champions in judo. Maeda was one of them, and Maeda uh, was sent to Brazil because a lot of Japanese were kind of migrating to South America, and Brazil was one of the areas that Jigoro Kano sent Maeda. Maeda in Brazil met, I believe it was Gustavo Gracie, or Gustavo Gracie, who was the dad of Carlos Gracie Sr. and Helio Gracie. And I believe that as a sign of, expression of his gratitude, he taught Carlos Gracie Sr. some Japanese judo with Japanese jiu-jitsu. And, this was because Gustavo Gracie, the father of Carlos Gracie and Helio. And by the way, Carlos Gracie is Renzo's grandpa.
Hmm.
Wow.
So yes, so
And that goes back
Carlos
to what you talk about from the source, from the
literally
first
from the
family.
source.
Because that's what they
Yes,
say. Like, so
absolutely.
when you find a school, brother, not to cut you off, they always say that you want to find the lineage that's closest to the top, right? Or like
Well,
I don't know how to say that, but like you want to find someone that's the closest to the top to learn from, in a sense, or like
yeah, well, I mean, like,
less
yeah. Look,
levels.
but then again, like you going back to what you said, it really depends on the individual. Like here's my lineage, right? My lineage is Jigoro Kano, then it's Maeda. Maeda taught jujitsu to Carlos Gracie Sr. Carlos Gracie taught it to Helio. Helio and Carlos's son, Carlos Gracie Jr., okay, promoted Master Jean-Jacques Machado to black belt. Hickson Gracie promoted Master Jean-Jacques to coral belt. So you have so you have Maeda. I'm sorry. You have Jigoro Kano judo. You have Maeda. You have Carlos Senior. You have Helio Gracie. Then you have Carlos Gracie Jr. Then you have Hickson Gracie. Then you have Jean-Jacques. And then you have me because Jean-Jacques promoted me to black belt in 2016. I believe I'm black belt number 89. So I was promoted by actually Jean-Jacques in December 15th of 2016. So,
Wow.
and
I was
I
there. I was
trained
there.
at headquarters
Yeah,
You were there.
I was
at
there.
local.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there,
Uh-huh.
and that's where I met Eric because I started training at Jean-Jacques 2013. I wish I would have started training there sooner, but 2013 was a true blessing that I walked in and learned that I'm not really the brown belt that I knew I wasn't because like man, Eric, remember Dragos?
Yes.
So Dragos, I remember like probably closer to when I was already still brown belt, like four stripe, but I rolled with Dragos, and he didn't baseball bat choke me as he did everybody else, and he said, Grego, you were a blue belt wearing a brown belt when you came, but now you're a brown belt wearing a brown belt. And to me, that was a huge
Right
compliment.
on. Yeah,
You
I
know
get
what I'm
that.
saying?
The Dragos is a real monster. Like, don't get me wrong. Like there's like that's a Terminator smashing machine, and if you could have
Yes.
survived him, like there's nothing on earth that could take you down.
Yeah, yeah. So and going back to the lineage, so and then it's like, Jean-Jacques and then myself. And obviously here with, Master Renzo Gracie, you're still kind of like, I guess it's Jean-Jacques because Jean-Jacques is a high rank. So it's Jean-Jacques, Master Renzo Gracie, and then myself.
Hmm.
And again, it goes back to the individual. So there's a lot of black belts that maybe just don't have the proper character. They may have be phenomenal in jiu-jitsu, they may be world champions, but it doesn't mean that you can actually teach. It doesn't mean that you can run an academy. And there's a lot of amazing jiu-jitsu practitioners, black belts, world champions, but instructing academy ownership and building an academy, it's just not their thing,
Hmm. That's
and
true.
it's
Not
it
not everybody is meant to be an instructor, and there's so many different ways to make it in this world. Teaching is probably one of the hardest. You got to be a people person. You got to deal with all sorts of different types of personalities, and you got to be able to instruct many different body types, right?
Yes.
And that's
And yeah,
the
and
tip of the
skill
iceberg.
levels too. You got people that literally have like zero athleticism that want to learn jujitsu and they're out of shape. So how do you conform what you're teaching when you have a person who's out of shape, very unathletic, and and then 10 people across, you have somebody who wrestled in college and you're teaching them the same thing. How do you teach the same thing that's going to be useful and beneficial and both body types and skill levels and physicalities and physical abilities and all that can actually do. And that's where being an instructor, being an actual like professor of jiu-jitsu, this is way harder than I believe than being a really great competitor, even though obviously that takes dedication and skill and all that. But I've competed a lot. You've competed a lot. You've definitely had a lot more success than I have. But I've competed a lot. I remember like in 2015, I did like 16 competitions. Most of them were IBJJF. Most of them I lost. But I the experience. I knew later on I would need for my future because I always wanted to have an academy and to teach and all that. But I got to tell you that competition is selfish. It's all about you. Even the last couple of times I competed, I had to make training about me. I had to make training more about, you know, that particular day, that particular opponent, blah blah, all that. And I want jujitsu to not be about me. I want jujitsu to be about my students, about helping them reach their highest potential.
So obviously on this podcast, brother, we talk about self-help. That's like the number one thing. So I'm always trying to figure out a way to like get through to people that have, you know, something going on with their head, right? Clearing their head
Yeah.
and whatnot. Wouldn't you say that like jujitsu is more of a something for the brain? Like it's more calming. Like it's obviously there's a huge physicality for it, right? You can lose weight and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
wouldn't you say that the first thing that like people kind of learn is that it actually helps you with like decompressing?
Yeah, it
and
manages your stress.
it manages
a
your
little bit.
stress. You can't think about anything else in jujitsu, right? So if you're stressed
No.
about something, you can't. It's
It's-
like almost impossible.
It's hard to think about something else, be somewhere else when somebody's trying to choke you.
And you get humbled at the same time, right? So I want to talk about
Very-
that a little bit more because I think that's important. You know, I want to touch on that. So independent.
Yeah, very much so. I'll tell you this. I started in 2004, January of 2004. I remember these dates because, like, I started January 14th, 2004. I started at a small, little, rundown school that was packed in North Hollywood, okay, off of Cahuenga. And I got to tell you, I mean, it's like first time I showed up there, it was like a 6 p.m. class. And you know, like North Hollywood, where like some parts of North Hollywood are okay, but then some parts are not okay at all, especially not at night. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was pulling up to like Coanga and I couldn't even find the place. There was no sign. The lights were on. It was all like fogged up. Man, I walked in, it was packed. It smelled of like sweat, ass, feet, and like humidity. It was insane. And I walked in, it was like 3 planks of flooring. And the instructor at that time, his name was D'Artagnan. Amazing guy. It was like my first introduction to jiu-jitsu. Oh, you know, no wave or nothing. Like, what do I do? He goes, oh, just take your shoes off. Let's roll. And I'm like, oh, okay. And, you know, I'm in good shape. I'm playing basketball like 5, 6 hours a day. Great cardio, like strong, powerful, you know. And this guy's like, you know, 5'7", 5'8", you know, and like maybe like 165, like that Iowa wrestler. He was from Iowa and he wrestled, you know.
Oh, right on.
And it was no gi also. So, you know, and I said, what do I do? He goes, try to choke me. I said, how? And I'm like this, like, you know, the serial killer.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, try to do that. And I got 1 knee down, 2 knee down. He pulled me up like in butterfly guard. I was floating. I had no control. He mounted me, choked me, just like fist to the throat. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, now I'm ready. Let's do it again and again and again and again. I think he tapped me probably 5, 6 times in a span of less than 90 seconds. I was just already exhausted. I had
Yeah.
zero cardio left, and I had fantastic cardio. I'd go play basketball at Venice Beach, like, you know, with all the like you know, all the guys that are like, you know, real like athletic, and I was pretty good at basketball, you know. And I just realized that, man, if I don't learn how to speak this language, I'm gonna get thrashed by a really small human being that can barely speak this language. And I really want to learn this. And I just started training and started going like 3 days a week. Realized that's not enough, and then started going like 4, if I could, 5 days a week, because I was living off of La Brea and Wilshire, and I was trading securities at that time, and it was just tough to get to North Hollywood.
Once you start
But
going more than 2 or 3 times a week, now you're looking at a lot of progress. You know, now you're able to keep everything you learn together.
yeah, because like 2 times a week, it's kind of like okay, 2 times. I tell our students like this: like 1 time a week is better than nothing, but you won't progress. 2 times is better than one. Uh, but 3 times at minimum, you'll have at least steady progress. If you put in that 4th day, so you don't have gaps of like 2 days that you're off the mat, you're gonna actually progress. But going back to what you said, Cole, you know what jujitsu did for me is that it introduced jujitsu introduced me to me, meaning that I truly met myself because I met the version of me that I've never met before. I met the version of me
I like
of
that.
how I handle pressure, of how I react to bad positions, bad situations, how I respond to being submitted over and over and over by the same person the same way, and I just can't do anything about it. And how I find solutions to these problems, how I'm able to adapt, and it only introduced me to me. And sometimes, maybe more so than sometimes, I'd be driving home and I would be pissed off. I'd be pissed off that I maybe got put in a bad position when I shouldn't have. Maybe I got submitted. Maybe I was not happy the way I reacted to being submitted. Because you get submitted, like, fuck, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't need, and it
Over and
just
over again.
introduced me to me. So over and over again with the same submission. And back then it was to the death jujitsu. Like 2004 was like right at the end of the period where it was just like my instructor's mindset at that point is this: you're going to quit eventually and you're going to quit sooner than later, so you better prove to me that you're even worthy of me teaching you. I don't care how much you're paying me. He lived in the back. Okay, so it's like he had like a 2 bedroom little tiny apartment in the back of like the front, like kind of school area, and the school was maybe 1,000 square feet, maybe less. So he lived in the back, and he just came out, like he would get up and then walk right out, and then here he is training, like still in his like sweats and all that, looking all disheveled. But he was great. And I really learned so much about myself, how I react to all these bad situations, and I was able to refine it. And I made a lot of like good relationships, but it was rough, man. It was like I didn't know if I'm walking in doing jujitsu, if we're doing wrestling, if we're gonna be doing striking, if we're gonna be doing some sort of weird conditioning, and that he's gonna exhaust us and then make us like do like some sort of like boxing, MMA type stuff. It
Oh
was just
wow.
whatever it
Okay.
was he said we do. But a lot of it was based on jujitsu. So, it was just a beating, like if you notice like that missing tooth right there,
Yeah.
he cracked it. He put me in a triangle, but wouldn't let me go. And he kept on squeezing his thighs and my jaw, and I heard like a crack. My
Cracked your
tooth
tooth.
cracked, and so that was like a white belt. I thrashed my disc in my neck to where my like left arm went numb.
Oh, this was
I
a
was
different
like,
time. This is in the early days.
oh no, this is a completely unsustainable business model that you cannot, you can't do that to people, because dudes were getting hurt, fucking each other up. It was just like, like everybody, like, pulling an arm, like you give it a little bit of extra pull just to make sure that, they really tap. That's like, like that. So it was like, the days were rough, you know what I mean?
I
So
just
that's when I started.
I,
So
I
I'm
remember
very grateful to have been mentored by legends and icons of jujitsu, from Hoist Gracie and spending so many
who have
years
you rolled with,
under
Professor?
him, to
Who
Gracie Academy, and Horian Gracie and Henner and Huron and Hickson and Rodrigo Gracie and Hoyler Gracie and all these like amazing human beings that we would see at the Gracie Academy, where we would go very often. And that was before I started with Jean Jacques, because I remember back, I moved back to Tarzana from Los Angeles in 2007. So it was too far to go to North Hollywood, especially with traffic. It was just I couldn't make it. And I looked in the yellow pages. Remember the yellow pages? Colt, remember?
Yes.
I don't know, Eric, if you remember yellow pages,
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked at the yellow pages and I saw, oh, Jean-Jacques Machado Jiu-Jitsu. I called, no answer. I called again, no answer. I called at a different time, no answer. And then I called, it was an answering machine with like some, like, I couldn't even tell what the answering, message was. Nobody called back. I called back again. Some Brazilian guy answered the phone, yelled at me that no, they're closed and they don't have any classes right now. And I drove by there. Closed, 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 closed. Same spot. But before he moved to the front where it was
Okay.
off of it was more towards the back in that second driveway. And I just and I couldn't get in there, or else I would have been at Jean Jacques 2007. So
Mm,
but it all, listen, God blessed me to walk the path that I walked, as a result of his hand, and he led me down a beautiful path, and I couldn't be more blessed to now be here. And jiu-jitsu has blessed me as a result of like God's blessings. It's been amazing.
that's awesome. That's awesome. We connected the other day a little bit. We talked on the phone. You definitely dropped some knowledge on me, some business advice, how to run the academy. I think I told you, like, I think I'm getting close to my blue belt running the business, but there's been so many, uh, I would not say like hiccups or bumps in the road, but just so many challenges that have nothing to do
Yeah.
with the training of the students, but just like things that you learn. And like, in jiu-jitsu, like, you're in a bad position, like, I got tapped an armbar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Business, you're in a bad position, or like, that's a late fee, that's a fine, that's a, that's a student who's trying to sign up, and there's nobody there to get his info, pick up that phone,
Yeah.
and it's all these things that, like, I've had to learn over these past 2 years, that have really, like, now that I'm wanting to level up, I gotta solidify. Um, in your How many years have you been teaching now, running your business, sir?
I'll tell you like this. So I was blessed by my second instructor, Pat King, and he's got a school, I think, in Northridge. So he was one of Hoist Gracie's original students from like '95, and I met Pat because Jean Jacques wasn't picking up the phone. So
Okay.
I started with Pat in Woodland Hills at LA Boxing. Okay, and that's where I met Eric. You know Thor?
Yeah, I know Thor. Shout out to Thor Skanky. That's the homie too.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love Thor, and I met Thor and Pat at the LA Boxing that was on Ventura in Woodland
I
Hills. I
remember that
forgot.
place. Yeah, I don't. It
Yeah.
might still be there, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so so I started training with Pat, and that was in 2007, and I think probably like late 2007, he had me he was bringing me along to help him teach at this karate school in Woodland Hills, and he could make it one time, and he said, "Hey, listen, can you teach for me?" And I was like, I felt like I'm ready to teach, and I was like, I think two-stripe blue belt, and it was my first opportunity to teach, and it was just the impact, because I've seen so I've been impacted so much by my instructors and mentors, and by him, and by Hoist, and all these Gracies. So kind of fast forward, my real kind of first introduction into an academy was in 2011. So Hoist still lives, I think, down in Rancho Palos Verdes. Okay. And it's in like South Bay. So Rancho Palos Verdes is from the San Fernando Valley. It's not too far if there's no traffic, but it's like 2 hours if you're driving there
Ouch.
for a
Okay.
4 p.m. kids bus. Oh, it's
Okay.
horrible. But I offered Hoist, I said, hey, listen, why don't we open up an academy? I was doing very well financially at that time, and let's open up an academy with Pat and Hoist and another guy right by Hoist's house. So it would be easier for Hoist to be there, and then he would be able to bring his son and his kids to train and also to teach and all that. And he said, yeah. So I opened up an academy, Hoist Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Network, because we couldn't call it Hoist Gracie Jiu-Jitsu because Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was like complicated use
Right,
of the
and there's
name.
and there's a lot of back and forth between them and all this other stuff when it comes to the name and the trademark, and
Yeah, yeah,
who
because
gets to
Hoy
say.
and trademarked and all that, but I think all that is in the past. So,
Mhm.
so we opened up that academy in 2011. The problem was is that in 2011, my mom, she was diagnosed with cancer. So she was diagnosed with like colon cancer, like hardcore colon cancer, which just completely like put all of our lives on just immediately having to give attention to my mom. And she went into the hospital in January of 2011, and then basically she passed away in July of 2011. So like 7 months later.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to really give a lot of attention to that academy. So it kind of like went under just because I'm too far and there was all these issues and all that. Fast forward to 2018, okay, at the end of 2017. So I was promoted to black belt by Jean Jacques 2016, and I started teaching at 805 Jiu Jitsu because Mark invited me to teach at 805. And that's where I met Rick and Cowboy and all the guys, and Colt,
Mhm.
essentially sometime in 2017. And I started teaching at 805 Jiu-Jitsu in Simi Valley, which was a Jean-Jacques Machado affiliate. At the end of 2017, Mark Morales, who was, a big factor in my in my jiu-jitsu upbringing, because Mark loves, and I really love Mark. He really helped forge me in ways that nobody else did, because Mark loves you in a tough love kind of way. Wouldn't you agree, Eric?
I would say so.
And Mark, also Colt. So like Mark loves that tough love, and that shit will forge you. You know what I mean?
It will,
And
yeah. When you're
Mark,
trying to earn it, I think that if someone's trying to chase that love, like, oh, accept me, please, I think that really does something to somebody,
yeah,
And then when
yeah,
someone's
and
actually willing to give it,
it's
you're like, thank you. Give into
yeah.
appreciation.
His tough love isn't for everybody, but he offered to me. He said, "Hey, listen, we and at that time Christian was also part of that school in 805, and he said at the end of 2017, hey, listen, we really wanted to make some renovations. We wanted to make some changes. If you wanted to come in as a partner, uh, put some money in, use that money for renovations, and come in as a partner." And I thought, wow, that'd be great. And I moved my family out to Simi Valley in 2018. And in 2007, December of 17, we renovated that whole academy. Because remember, it was like green, it was brown, and then Christian painted it green. And then like we tore it all up,
Yeah, it
and
was it
that's where
was
we
like
put up
now
that brick.
this was like when it was like a Krav Maga like type of thing, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So, we got the signage with the, Machado Jiu Jitsu, and it was like a decent location. Long story short, we opened up in 2018 January as Jean Jacques Machado Simi Valley, and it was all remodeled, looking beautiful, everything. But what I realized was is that when I looked at the total student count, it had maybe 60 students. Maybe 30 of them were Krav Maga students, 30 of them were Jiu-Jitsu students, and probably like 50% of each were doing both Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So over a period of few months, what I started doing obviously was just, you do marketing, and then you begin to build a brand and so forth. Probably within 6 months, 60 turned into probably about 120, and we added students, and that's with barely any marketing, because I had a lot of pushback in any type of marketing or any expenses and all that kind of stuff with, let's just say, my partners at that time, with Mark and Christian. And ultimately it was growing, so I took that thing from like 60 students to about 120. And then when I ultimately decided that it was time to part ways with Mark, or maybe he decided that it was time for us to part ways in, like, I think it was September, October, like only like 10 months later, that school had like probably, I think, close to 150 students. So it was my first experience in how to build a school with literally like a knife and a fork. Do you know what I mean?
And this is when we talked a little bit of like ads and marketing and what it takes to start to get foot traffic in and the pros and
Yes.
cons of location, warehouse versus like storefront,
Yes.
where the
Yeah.
money goes, all that. This is so that was what 20 this was right before
2018.
right before COVID then?
Yes, right
Okay.
before COVID. So then I was still going to train at Jean Jacques headquarters, because I never stopped training there since I started in like early 2013. So I kept training there because obviously that's like my home. That's where I train. And, teaching at 805, training, building a business, but still training at least 3, 4 times a week at Jean Jacques in Tarzana. And I talked to Jean Jacques, and I said, would it be okay with you if I moved to Dallas Fort Worth and move my daughters and my family out here? Because, it was just kind of, LA was deteriorating, Valley's deteriorating, and open up a Jean Jacques Machado Academy. And at that time, Jean Jacques said, Grego, it's that's my brother Carlos's territory. And he doesn't open up schools around me. I don't want to open up schools around him. And and I left it alone. I'm like, what, completely understand. And I'm really, let's just say, very adamant about not crossing these lines.
Uh-huh.
A couple months later, I asked Jean Jacques, I said, it was like beginning of 2019. I said, would it be okay with you if I talked to Carlos and his partner at that time, Adam Carl, who was running his whole affiliation, if I maybe talk to them about possibly me, if all things work out, moving to Dallas Fort Worth and maybe opening up a Carlos Machado Academy, since you told me what you told me, and I would go under Carlos with your blessing, and only if you said it's okay. Jean Jacques, absolutely, Grego. Talk to Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to my, he's my brother. All that. I talked to Carlos, but I talked to actually Adam, and Adam really sold me on the business side of what the Carlos Machado Association had to offer, from marketing, from business systems, from even a curriculum and so forth, and a lot of the stuff they had going on, which was, let's just say, to say honestly, he told me that they had a lot more than what they did, but it was more in the planning stages. So they had some stuff, other stuff they didn't have. And finally, I came out to Dallas Fort Worth, met with Master Carlos, met with Adam, and I really felt that this is an amazing opportunity. And April of 2019, moved to Texas with my family, with my daughters and their mother at that time, trying to keep my personal life together, which was completely falling apart. And I thought that starting here anew would be like a new life, new start, plus a better life for my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, we ended up opening the very first Carlos Machado Jiu-Jitsu Academy right here, which was big. It was like solid, like 4.5 thousand square feet, big academy. And
Oh
Master
wow.
Carlos still had his academy about 40 minutes away, but he still was like RCJ Machado, because that's like, their old school like brand. And I opened up the first Carlos Machado Academy because I wanted to make sure nobody gives a shit about Greg Hamilton, BJJ. Okay. I know that I can be a much better ambassador of the Machado name, of Carlos Machado lineage, which still includes obviously Jean Jacques, who promoted me. And we opened up in November of 2019, started very successfully. I would say probably within the first month, okay, within the first 2 months, I easily had over 100 students,
Wow.
and enrollment
Wow.
was
Wow.
going
Wow.
fantastic. I built the website, marketing, everything, and I had time to like promote it and establish a name. I was training at headquarters with Master Carlos, was very gracious enough to embrace me. I got kind of intertwined in this incredibly let's say robust jiu-jitsu community here in DFW, and met a lot of people, and social media was absolutely instrumental in all of this. And we opened up, started strong, and then February of 2020, obviously, and then COVID, and then all of a sudden, March of 2010, 2020, everything logs down, and then everything shuts down, and now it's like, oh my god. And obviously you're sitting there, and jiu-jitsu is what feeds my family. Jiu-jitsu is all I do. I don't do any other work. I moved here to live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle,
Yeah.
and to and then now we're locked down. And in March of 2020, my ex decided that she's going to go visit her mom back in LA with my daughters just for spring break. And of course, she used that as an opportunity to tell my daughters, we're moving back to LA and we're not going back to Texas. So I didn't see my daughters for over 2 months, which I didn't even know about. I didn't agree to. And she really took
And okay,
advantage of
so now
that whole situation.
your business is in question. For the whole world is in question. Your personal life is going crazy. Like you have, like you're by yourself in uncharted territory, pretty much. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and it was. I got to tell you, I'd come home. It was just myself and my two dogs and my two boxers, Max and Athena, and the silence was deafening. However, it's just amazing how how it works. The month prior, in February, through one of my students, I met my current pastor, Pastor Paul Sager, and he met with me in February of 2020. So about maybe like 3 weeks before all the lockdowns happened. And we just went, and he's, good guy, like, still like my age, really great shape. So it's not like, it's like some old like priest or anything. And he came to our academy and he was very impressed with what he saw. And then we went to grab a burger, and, he just, we just talked. And it's not like he just tried to like, force religion upon me or anything. We were just talking. And bottom line is that I quickly realized with a few questions that he asked me that as much as I thought I'm going to heaven because of all I do, I quickly learned and realized that I'm on a way to hell. And that really was eye opening, because if I'm on my way to hell, so are my daughters. And I asked Pastor Paul, I said, well, what do I do? He said, it's all been done for you. I said, I don't even understand what that means. How is it that I don't have to do anything? He goes, Jesus Christ already did everything for you. All you need to do is just show up on Sunday to church and then hear God's word, and that's it. And I started going to church one time before they locked down all the churches. And as I sat home alone, it was myself, and I felt the Spirit of God inside of me. And it was me attending the worship services on Zoom at that time, and just reading the scripture,
Right
learning
on.
about the Bible, about Jesus Christ. And that was my process of the Holy Spirit bringing me to faith in Christ, my Lord and Savior. And here I am today, living a beautiful life that is rooted in God's blessings, God's hand, and everything that my academy is today is built on a foundation of God's word and God's blessing and God's hand. It wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if not for everything. Everything that is my life today is all a credit to God.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Period.
Guys, I want to. I believe in that, brother. 100%.
Yeah.
God first. Um,
Yes.
that's how I got back on track. To be honest with you, is when I stopped
Yeah.
thinking and I just started following. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. You got
right?
to surrender.
Yeah, you just surrender, and that's what gave me like
Yeah.
less anxiety. To be honest with you, is when I was just
Look,
like, okay,
you
it's
see?
in his hip. Yeah,
Jesus coffee, Jesus coffee and jiu-jitsu. I
You guys
even
can
have
hear
a
this. You're on
rascal.
Spotify or Apple. He's wearing a what is that
A
called?
rash
A rash
guard.
guard. A rash guard says
Jesus
Jesus coffee
coffee
and
and jiu-jitsu.
jujitsu.
That's my
That's
order.
Professor
I
Grego's
do
order.
Jesus in the morning. I drink coffee and then I do jiu-jitsu, and that's my life. I should
Hey,
put
that's
daughters.
beautiful, dude. That's beautiful.
So we touched on a ton of stuff, guys. I want to go back into this. I want to get back on topic here. So we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, we went over his past, his history. We talked about how the businesses got started. We got past that. Now I want to get into success stories because obviously everyone sees what you've done, but where's the success? That's what people are going to be like, okay, well, what did you do? So I'm curious about this. What kind of, tell me like at least two success stories. Someone that was like maybe overweight that turned skinny, or someone that came in maybe on drugs, or, you know, someone on the streets, or maybe like a veteran that was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder that came to you and he was like, bro, I'm suffering. And you were like, bro, I got you. And then he found like a brotherhood inside of it, kind of like I did. Like, just give me something, bro. I'm curious, like what you've seen since you've had so many students, because you probably had what, hundreds of students, if not more.
Yeah, let's just say at my previous academy, Carlos Machado Cities, we opened up in November of 2019, and last year in April, we came to a certain impasse because Master Carlos had a certain way that he wanted all of his affiliates to be able to teach students and so forth, and he and I just didn't see eye to eye in certain things. And I feel that nobody knows my students better than I do, and what they need. And I just kind of we had a difference of opinion, and respectfully, I'm so grateful to him and for him embracing me and giving me these opportunities to be able to represent his name. And I think I did quite honorably. I think on YouTube over 10,000 videos that I've uploaded. I think I have like 3,300 techniques I've uploaded, all in the name of Carlos Machado. And, because I represented Carlos Machado Jiu-Jitsu. I didn't represent Greg Hamilton BJJ, although I did have a blessing of an opportunity in 2020 to connect with a BJJ fanatics, and I was able to release currently five best-selling lapel submission system DVDs, or DVDs instructionals on BJJ Fanatics. So you can get those at greghamiltonbjj.com. Very proud of those. I got about four more that I still have to film for BJJ Fanatics. But we parted ways in April, and there was no, more amazing name that I could possibly represent moving forward than the master Renzo Gracie. And I reached out to him, and he was down, and I couldn't be more blessed of in August opened up this academy, the only Renzo Gracie DFW, Renzo Gracie Academy in North Texas. So going back to your question, so a couple of success stories. I'll tell you two success stories. I had a student who I saw walking before she was a student. She was walking through the parking lot, and I ran outside, gave her one of our flyers. This was back in 2019. And she took the flyer and was very surprised. And, she was kind of like heavy set and, very nice girl and, young. And she lived in the apartment complex across the street. Uh, like probably the following evening for the 6 p.m. class, she shows up. I was very surprised, and she kept showing up. She became a student, kept showing up, and really, like, jujitsu impacted her life in so many ways. She began to lose weight. She began to find a community of students. She was from Puerto Rico, so she had like good English, but she was still, kind of like, a little bit more connected with her Puerto Rican friends. And then she didn't have too many friends out here because she just moved out in the area. Long story short, she kept training, really was like doing great, excelling, learning. I could see how she's improving against like overall other students. And she tells me, like maybe a couple months afterwards, she lost like 10, 15 pounds. She goes, Professor Greg, I just want to tell you, I'm just so blessed to be here because I'm healthier today than I've ever been in such a long time. I fit into clothes now that I haven't worn in many years. I feel so much more confident, and she was a waitress. So she was like a waitress and bartender. So it's kind of like, you have that lifestyle where you have a lot of like guys hitting on her. And she was like, she's a pretty girl and stuff. And she got in better shape. So now she's a lot more attractive and a lot more confident, and she's just telling me how jujitsu is impacting her life. So fast forward like another 6, 8 months, she met a guy, and of course, unfortunately, she got pregnant. So she was pregnant, and she stopped training. And a couple months later, I didn't see her, and then she came back in, and she was still like pregnant, right? Like maybe like 4 months pregnant. This is already like probably almost a year later. She came in with her dad, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, it's great to see you. How are you doing?" And I knew that she was pregnant, and she's like, "Oh, kind of, give me that look." And her dad was there. It was like weird. And then she goes, "You didn't hear what happened?" And I said, "What happened?" She goes, "Well, my ex, the father of her, children, he, all of a sudden got really violent with me, and he was very abusive." And I said, "Oh my God, I didn't know." She goes, "Yeah." She goes, and so many times that what I learned from you, I used in order to defend myself when he was abusive. But
Wow.
it just got to the point where, and this is while she was pregnant, that he just like went like crazy because he like, I think he was like drinking a lot, doing drugs and all that kind of stuff. And he just like started like attacking her. And she goes, and I don't know, I instinctively reacted. And then I just like threw him, and he fell on the ground, and I kicked him. I ran into my bedroom. I locked the door. I called the police, and he was beating down on my door. And I thought that, oh my God, if he like breaks down the door, he's literally going to kill me. And even worst of all, he was like punching me. He was trying to punch me in the stomach to like hurt the baby. And it was just like chilling to hear that. And she says, and then the police arrived and they arrested him. So now he's in jail. And, and I feel safe. I got a restraining order against him. And she goes, if not for what I learned from you, and she was still like maybe a 2 stripe white belt. That I don't know what would have happened. You saved my life from what I
Wow.
learned from you,
Wow.
and you saved the life of my baby. And it's story, and I have story after story after story after story like this. You know what I mean? Not exactly like this, but the impact of jujitsu on students. Then she had her baby, and then she came back to train, and like literally like 3 weeks after she had her baby, and she came back to train, and it was like a machine. But then she got pregnant again, and then she moved back to Puerto Rico. But it happens. But the impact that jiu-jitsu's had on her, it was phenomenal. And just a story that she shared with me, because she would share with me how she had struggles, she almost quit, and I had a conversation with her, talked off the edge of quitting before she got pregnant, and she stuck with it. And it was very hard for me to like hold back tears to hear her look at me with tears in her eyes, sharing that story of absolute horror in her life and how jujitsu saved her.
Yeah, right on, man. You never know who you're gonna affect, how it's gonna work out for them, and
Yeah.
going back, like that's why we got to try to walk this path, so that way we are giving the good information and the right message, and using this for self defense and to protect others. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like competition's great, training's great, but you need to be able to protect yourself.
Doesn't Professor Jean Jacques say someone may walk in peace?
Someone may walk in peace. What?
Yeah, that's like his quote, right? He says jujitsu is so one may walk in peace, right? Is that like on his thing? thing? Doesn't he have a?
I'm not too sure about
Oh,
that one.
okay, okay. It's
Well,
like a,
listen, I don't disagree with you. I think that, when you train jujitsu, you definitely do, have a lot of peace and calm, knowing that you have the ability to control yourself. You have the ability, like it's one of the many impacts jujitsu's had on me. It helped me control myself emotionally in situations that were stressful, and
right,
I
like if you're
lived in
getting
LA in
choked
a rec.
out, right? You're getting choked out, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna die, but I'm not really because I got like a little hand in there, right? It's like you're still
Yeah,
surviving, but you're kind of dying at the same time, right?
and you're
Yeah.
staying calm under pressure. I think that
Correct.
life in itself can have incredibly crushing pressure that all of a sudden just sneaks up on you over periods of time, and like takes your back, let's just say, to so to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
begins to choke you out. And oftentimes life will not let go of that submission,
I,
and sometimes life just wants to choke the fuck out of you, and
totally.
you got to stay calm, and you got to be able to focus on solutions, because the very core essence of jiu-jitsu really is to focus on solutions from bad situations, and life is all about, understanding that, yes, I'm faced with a problem. I understand what the problem is. Now I'm going to apply the skills and solutions and techniques that I know in order to be able to implement solutions to the problems I face. It's not like one solution is the magic end all be all, just like, let's say, if you're in a bottom position in a bottom side control, one hip movement or hip escape's not going to do it. You need to create frames, you need to find the timing, and you need to start moving, and you need to keep connecting movement until you get to an improved position. And all of this translates to life. It's important for instructors, mentors in jiu-jitsu, to be able to help students draw these parallels, because I have students that that struggle. A lot of them struggle, depression. Like, I have a lot of veterans that
Mm-hmm.
really came here and found a community. And I had a student, like, want to know the success story. I'm on social media, and I see a post from one of my students, and it's not a very good post that implies that, like, I'm fed up, I had it all, I just want to say goodbye to everybody. Right? It was like at 2 in the morning. I called him, and he didn't answer. I called him, didn't answer. I texted him because I thought, maybe I do not disturb on. So I called and called. Finally, he answered, and I started talking to him. And I told him, I said, "Hey, listen, I saw your post. I just want to see you okay." And then he started telling me how, just that he just can't. He's just hopeless. He's in a state of hopelessness, that his either wife or girlfriend, I remember at the time, that she's like, basically like broke up with him or left him, and then he's by himself, and he's got financial troubles, what's the point? I'm just going to end it all and put myself out of my misery. So I talked to him from, like, I don't know, it was like 2 a.m. maybe until like 5 a.m., until I already knew that I walked him back off the edge and off that ledge of potentially pulling the trigger, And I knew that he's about to pull the trigger because he told me, and he sounded like, like he's really right on that edge, And I think that at that moment, just God put me in the proper place, where I saw his post, and I called him and reached out to him, talked to him. And most of the time, it's not like I talked to him about don't commit suicide, don't commit suicide. I talked to him about just life. I talked to him about listen to him, about listen to him about his struggles, listen to him, what's going on in his life. And what I did was, is that once I knew that he was already kind of like in a more clear headspace, that he understood that by him taking his life, he's going to unleash unspeakable suffering to everybody around him while he takes the easy way out. And that when people commit suicide, as tragic as it is, they unleash uh, immeasurable suffering to everybody around them, to their friends, in particular family. Worst of all, if you have children, nobody will ever be the same as a result of you deciding that you're going to do what you think is best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and I explained to him, I said, look, I said, you're a Christian. And I know that even though that, you kind of pushed Jesus away from your life, your life is not yours to take. It's God for you to call you home, not for you to end your life. And that's not what God wants from you, because you have a bigger responsibility, because the impact you're going to have on everybody around you, and me included, if you take your life, nobody's going to be the same, knowing that you were here today and all of a sudden you're gone tomorrow. And he kind of like saw a different perspective. I also, because he lived in like Dallas, so he was about an hour away. And I told him, I said, what I really want to do is I want you to just reconnect with somebody of faith that's nearby you. And I called my Pastor Paul, and I had Pastor Paul go visit. Pastor Paul went to visit him, and saw him at his house, connected this guy with a pastor that was closer to him, and he started going to church. And he's alive and well today. Just bought a second house, has, I think, a
Awesome.
new girlfriend or something, and is
Life is looking
rescuing
good.
dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another example. It's all through
That's amazing,
jujitsu.
brother. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Those success stories are the ones that like give me like the chills.
That's, because we've all been in a dark place or a valley,
Right.
and when you're going through it, everything sucks.
What's the? I
yeah,
mean, besides that, I mean, obviously that's probably the most important and most rewarding part of being an instructor is that you can change lives.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
That's what you guys do,
That's
because you guys have so much power over somebody. You really do.
yeah,
Because when you're in that
yeah,
state, like you can literally guide them to either the right way or the wrong way. But because you guys do
yeah,
what you do, you guys get to change lives. And I'm just so thankful for that.
yeah,
You guys are both
yeah.
hugely impactful in my life. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
lucky.
and Cole, you're a good example. I remember when you started. I remember the struggles you had as far as family situations goes.
Yeah, I
You
was
have an
struggling big
incredibly,
time.
like, successful business that is so, like, heavy to carry. And I remember back in 2018 and 19, and it's like I know how much you went through on a personal level. I know, you're a father of daughters, as is I'm a father of two daughters, and and personal life can really turn us upside down. I remember that you departed from jujitsu, and and I know how what an impact jujitsu had on you, and how therapeutic it was for your life, and just to be able to talk to you and help you kind of find your way back to jujitsu, and and just to be able to use it as a look. Jujitsu is either a pillar or a crutch, if you really think about it. You know what I mean?
I always say
In
it's
our
just the
hard
most
times,
humbling thing. It's so humbling. And I think that's what I use it for, because I humble myself every day. Always.
yeah,
Whether it be a
yeah,
cold shower, whether it be getting tattooed, I have all my ways of humbling myself to make myself feel appreciative to be alive. I have to feel
yes,
like I appreciate life. And jujitsu is the only thing that can consistently do that. I go, okay, you know what, Colt? You feel a little bit down today? Cool, that's fine. Go get choked up by Professor Eric Medina today. And so I do.
yes,
And then I feel
yeah,
that, and I'm like, Jesus. Because if you guys don't know, like me and Professor Eric are different, a little bit different. Like even height wise. But when I go against him, it's like it feels like I'm wrestling you, or like dude, and or
well,
and it's so humbling to be just humbled by somebody, and then to just bring you back down to earth, And I think that's what we need. And I feel like because when I first got into jiu-jitsu, I remember rolling with Professor Rick, and before I even went in there, I was like, oh, I'm strong. I lift weights, I can bench, almost 400
no, you were
pounds.
always in great shape. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's
and
not a
I
matter.
went in, and then I just couldn't breathe. And I remember just smothering me, and just how does he get these moves? And no matter how much strength I had, I couldn't do anything about it. My strength was
Yeah,
useless. I remember even out when I went out to see you in Texas. I was rolling with you, and I was like, God, I got nothing on this guy. And he was going so slow on me. Just
well, I
arm
have to.
bar,
First of all,
neck bar,
I have to protect myself, because first of all, you're super strong,
yeah,
and you know how it is, Eric. Depending on the state of mind Colt's in, he's going to try to unleash an onslaught of strength and power onto you that you just gotta fight off and make sure you don't get hit or kneed in the face or anything. You know what I mean? And then
100%.
kind of the cardio kicks in. You know what I
would you
mean?
say that's kind of adjusted a little bit, Eric?
Um,
Like the strength, like the explosive.
it is
He's
for
told me
me
to. Yeah.
to be able to absorb or redirect your exertions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's a big power move, I cannot stand in the way. I got to let it glance off me, and
Yeah,
then we get into
I
that.
can't stand in the way. Look at him. I see you, with you posting and all the crazy push-ups you're doing. Look, I tape my wrists to do this podcast. That's how thrashed I am.
Yeah, you guys are both savages. I can't do nothing to either of you guys. So brother, what's next, man? We're kind of wrapping it up. I just wanted to see like I mean, I know it's hard to share some things, but like what's the future plans and everything like that? Like stay the course, build the school, grow it, maybe open another school. And then also advice. I want to know some advice quick on like someone that might be listening to this. I mean, we got a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that are, listening. They're like, man, if you're so successful, maybe I could do it. Like, what would be some advice?
I'll tell. Okay, so going back to what you said, so how you said that jujitsu humbles you. Okay, remember what the Bible says. Okay, those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. The last shall be first. The first shall be last. That's why it's very, very important, because you never know. The ones that like exalt themselves and prop themselves up on these pedestals, all of a sudden, you know what I mean, they will be humbled, and them being first, all of a sudden they'll be last. I feel that that's even like happened to me several times in life. You
Me
know what I
too.
mean? I look back to
Amen.
when I was at this point where I'm like up, and then all of a sudden, bam, out of
Mhm.
nowhere. But going back to again, the second thing I wanted to share is, remember, jujitsu is either a pillar or a crutch. Think of the concept. When do you use a crutch? When you're limping, when you're down, when you need extra assistance. Jiu-jitsu is either a pillar or a crutch. So when it's a crutch, you use it to lean on it. You use it to help you. You use it to get through those times where maybe you're injured, and it has nothing to do with a physical injury. You're going through stress. Like for me, I use jiu-jitsu as a crutch way more than a pillar. And then eventually you use it as a crutch, and then slowly but surely it will turn into a pillar. And a pillar you use to build, a pillar you use to leap forward, and you make these leaps forward, and then all of a sudden you twist your ankle, and then you have to use jiu-jitsu as a crutch again. But in life, whenever you have these moments where you need stress relief, where you're not feeling good and so forth, jiu-jitsu is a crutch, and then it's a pillar, mostly a crutch. But going back to what's next, for us is I have built in 7 months with my team over here at Renzo Gracie DFW, an academy that by every standard and measure is more successful than my previous academy was in 5 years. Okay, so I had it from November of 2019. I departed in April of 2024. So 4.5 years. Okay, at that academy, I think we got to, I don't know, a couple hundred students over there, and it was doing good. In 7 months, I have blown away by the very peak of what I achieved at that other academy. And I'm going to continue to do everything that I learned over there, all my lessons in business and being able to market, and whether it's social media or marketing or ads or
How many students do you
converting.
have,
And
brother? Roughly.
I don't want to say a number, but
Okay.
let's just say
It's up
we're
there.
probably one of the biggest academies in all of Texas, I
Dude.
would say. And there's a lot of big academies here. I know that
Mhm.
there's some have like, 700 students. We're not, let's say, quite there, but we're getting up there,
Got it.
because
Wonderful.
I've been able to implement systems and processes that are the result of my ability to create and to provide an environment for students, so that whether they want to continue their jiu-jitsu journey or start their jiu-jitsu journey, whatever it may be, we have it all. And I have the most amazing team of instructors. I have the most amazing team on my business side. And it allows me to focus on being creative and being the tip of the spear. Because like you said, people may drive by and see Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. They walk in, they're going to stay because of either me or because of my first black belt, Philip Bullock, who is our head kids instructor. My
Legend.
right hand, my left
Love
hand,
that
my
guy.
left leg, right leg, my everything. And one of the most amazing, amazing human beings I've ever met, thanks to Jiu-Jitsu. He started with me before we opened up the other academy. He's been with me through thick and thin. Probably one of the most loyal human beings I've ever met in my life. And I couldn't be more blessed by God to have him cross our paths exactly when it should. I met him at Brown Belt, and today he's got the best kids program that I could ever possibly imagine. Like, I call it a kids enrichment program. We have truly amazing. You can look at our social media at Renzo Gracie DFW on Instagram, and you can see, and and we want to continue to be of service to our local community, to be of service to our kids and teens and adults, law enforcement. We have a very big seminar coming up on Saturday, and we're calling it the de-escalation and control tactics, DCT. And I have a lot of law enforcement students. I probably have more law enforcement active police officers than most other academies
Right on.
have. Why? Because we provide a safe training environment. We have safe training partners, and police officers feel comfortable knowing that they're not going to come in here and get like heel hooked by a 23-year-old that couldn't give a shit less about their safety, and they know that they're going to be able to come in here, learn, and all of their skills will be able to apply to their job. So we have
Right on.
a wonderful seminar coming up on Saturday, so I'm excited about that. But the goal is open up a second location, open up a third location. I want in the next 5 years, at least five more, and this one is the headquarters. But that's on like the local level. I have two really big dream academies that I want to open up. I want to open up Renzo Gracie Moscow
Wow, that's cool in a different country.
And Renzo Gracie Dubai.
Crazy. That's
There you
awesome.
go, and just fly around.
International. Let's do it.
Yes,
So
yes, and yeah.
if anyone wanted to open their own school, brother, how do you think? Like just a real quick rundown because we got to get going. What do you think as far as opening a school and like how hard is it? I mean, like can anyone do it on like the level you're at? And then like what would be the advice? Just some quick advice for someone looking to open up their school.
The best advice I could tell you is this: to truly open up a successful jiu-jitsu academy, you have had to have gone through a jiu-jitsu education from some kind of like your own training where you have been mentored by truly great human beings, instructors, professors, and you understand how and why a jiu-jitsu academy is successful. And it has nothing to do with money. If money is your primary objective when it comes to opening up a jiu-jitsu academy, don't do it. Don't do it because you're going to be chasing the wrong motives. The focus needs to be being of service and enriching and empowering the lives of all your students. But you cannot do that if you yourself are not in a place where you can lead by example. If you're going through like hard times in your life, if you have like various problems and issues and all that, it's going to be creating glitches in your ability to really have a positive impact on the people that are going to be coming to you, especially kids and teens, because you're dealing with children, you're dealing with their parents. I probably have easy, like, I don't know, 150 kids, you know what I mean? And imagine each one's likely have one, two parents, maybe grandparents and all that kind of stuff. And that's just kids. So you have to be able to, you know, be a credible source of what it is that you're teaching. And you have to be able to, teach much more than just jujitsu and self-defense. So
I
I
love
would
it.
say like this: what gave me the motivation for success is that I pulled up on shore and I burned all my ships. There was no turning back. There was only forward.
I love that. No
It's
plan B,
it,
right? No
it's
plan
the
B.
only way.
So yeah, go ahead.
It's like I have a plan, but that plan is to succeed. I have a really specific plan. Everything is planned out, even though that you got to be flexible within your plan. But moving backwards, it's not an option.
I,
I
re-
burn all my ships so that the only option is to move forward and execute
I
the
was,
plan.
and I also
It's
remembered you were doing like 4 or 5 classes a day. I remember you telling me, yeah, I got a class at 6, I got a class at 9, I got a class at
I
11, I got a class at
I still
3.
I still am. I still am. I I
Wow,
I do
that's
I do the
phenomenal.
afternoon and evening classes. I do my best to be on the mat with our students. I do my best to train, even though that I'm not exactly at 100%, even though I'm maybe at like 60, 70% due to circumstances. I still am out here and I'm still doing
I
everything I
love it.
can because the students are here because of me and the kids are here because of Philip. But I am the face of our academy. I have to lead by example and I have to be here in the trenches with my students because you always have to lead from the front. That's what I truly
Amen to
believe
that.
that a good leader does.
Love that. So, guys, in closing, question for both of you. Okay, top 5 people you've rolled with. Ready, set, go, Professor Eric.
Greg Hamilton.
No, not like experience wise. Like I'm thinking like more like celebrities, like people that like are like big names. So I know you guys have all wrestled with some,
Mm,
rolled with some big names and stuff
I
like
feel
that.
like Gary Tonin, Gordon Ryan, obviously my master, John Jack Machado, Eddie Bravo, and
You rode.
I've rolled with Renzo Gracie before too.
Wow. I know you've rolled with also like Nate Diaz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
But those top 5 are my top 5.
And same with you, Professor Greg. Same with you.
Man, I gotta say, like,
Like
top
just big
five.
names.
It's
Yeah, just big names.
you know, without any particular order except this one, the one that really has had the biggest impact on my jiu-jitsu is Master Jean Jacques.
Amen.
And it's interesting that, like, like between all the, like, the Keenan Corneliuses and all the different guys that you, like, encounter and so forth, I gotta say, like, probably the biggest impact that guys that I've rolled with have had on me would be number one, Jean Jacques, and obviously, like, the Gracies, and, like, between Hoist and, like, like Henner and Huron and those guys and Hickson and all these greats. I would say that the guys that I train with at Jean Jacques, Eric included, and Joey, and all the, and the Dragoses, and the the Marks, and the Jezebeloses, everybody there really were these incredibly influential sources of just shaping me into really truly, like what Drago said. I came in there a blue belt wearing a brown belt, and those men just really brought the best out of me. Marcel, up at the front, who always, like, encouraged me and helped me, and then taught some of the classes when Jean Jacques wasn't there. And just, it's like, going to Eric's house at LA Jiu-Jitsu Club, you know what I mean, and training with you guys, and and all the, it's like these have been the most influential people on me. And yes, obviously I've learned a lot from guys that you roll with and all that, but I have to give credit to Master Jean Jacques and everybody at Jean Jacques Machado headquarters that really shaped me into and mentored me. You know what I mean? Because it's much more than just going there to train. It's like learning, it's observing, it's watching. It's like, how many times I've had an opportunity to learn from Eric, and just to watch how he teaches and how he presents jujitsu, and how he, like, just keeps the room engaged and everybody. And it's really something that has truly inspired me, and I apply it in my everyday life with my students here, at my current academy.
Right on.
I just like how there's so many big names, not even like just in the jiu-jitsu world, right? Because names like Jean Jacques and Hickson Gracie and all these other names, Renzo Gracie,
Yeah.
these are huge names.
Yeah,
But then, like, even with the celebrities, like, I know that there's a lot of local celebrities that train with a lot of the guys that you guys know.
Yeah, but Colt,
and
those
stuff like
they're
that.
celebrities. They don't even. We're not there for them. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Totally.
It's just like a.
I guess it's just that jujitsu. Like, the reason why I bring that up is because jujitsu is so powerful that even they can see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not just like the average Joe. It's like everyone and their mom sees it. You got firefighters. You got people of all different walks of life. Nurses.
Well, they're all coming together, and you're all basically equal. Like, I remember, like,
Correct.
when Russell Peters came to headquarters, I didn't really know who Russell was, and I just saw a white belt coming in there, and I was always, like, kind of the ambassador to the new people that come in there, because I don't want them to get caught up in some sort of meat grinder that they're not going to come back. And so I would always kind of take him in, and Russell was going, and I didn't know Russell was like Russell. It was like,
it's funny
one of
when
the 50 good.
when you don't know that somebody is a celebrity, you're like, oh, like, you're just a white belt. Like, they're just an E1, to be honest. Like, that's how it is. Like, like, oh, like, what, you're just here to learn jiu-jitsu? Okay, like, cool, I got you. But, like, what do you do? Oh, you're an actor? Like, okay, act out of this, and boom, just like light them up.
Yeah. But I didn't even know that he's like Russell until he invited me over to his house for a play date, because he
like
heard that I had 2 daughters. He had a daughter.
Multi-millionaire guy.
And then I pulled up to Hidden Hills, okay? And in Hidden Hills, I pull up to, like, his gigantic house, and I'm like, oh my God, and I walk in, there's like Emmy Awards and all that. And Russell is one of the most amazing human beings through jiu-jitsu I've ever met is Russell. A man that is one of the most kind, generous, loyal, amazing human beings. I would take a bullet, literally a bullet, for that guy. And I've traveled the world with him. He took me in a really shitty, dark period of my life that I met him in 2017. And he gave me hope when my personal life was beyond dark. And like I said, I traveled the world with this guy, and I would still to this day take a bullet for him. He's just an amazing human being, and I met him through jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? And
Right
it's
on.
like it's been just beyond blessing. But by the grace of God, I'm here living jiu-jitsu. Like Jean Jacques says, I live jiu-jitsu. I live jiu-jitsu now.
I love it. And there's just so many other things we could go into talking about. We're gonna
Yeah,
have
we
to do
need
this
part
another
two.
time. We need like a part 2. But
I would love to be a part 2.
yeah. Well, brother, I really thank you so much for everything you've
Thank you.
done for not only me but just for the art of jiu-jitsu. You've literally stepped into every single arena, even with different people. You've learned, I've seen your story, come alive, and I've had the pleasure just being with you through that whole ride, and I'll always
I
consider you my
appreciate
brother,
that.
my mentor,
And I,
in jiu-jitsu,
absolutely.
and I'm lucky I have my 2 brothers, that I look up to, for jiu-jitsu here with me on this podcast. I'm
Let's
just
go.
so thankful, guys. Other than
Well,
that,
thank
brother,
you, thank you very much, Cole. Thank you, Eric. I really
Of
appreciate
course,
it. It
dude.
means
Greg,
the
we'll
world
be
to
in
me to
touch,
be
man.
sitting here, and yeah, and definitely, and I'm here for you guys, and I am one of those people that either one of you could call at any time, any hour. Just if my phone's on do not disturb, because call back a second time so it'll ring through. But I'm here for you guys, and I love you guys. You guys are my brothers in Christ, and I couldn't be more blessed and grateful than to be here. And all glory be to God, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
I love
Amen.
you, brother. You're the man, bro. Anything else, brother?
No,
You good?
thank you, Cole. Hey, right now I got my noon class. I'm about to head out of here. Ghost, thank you much for another amazing
Yes,
podcast,
Ghost,
making the
thank you very
making
much.
the Skype happen out of your head. Just here's the link.
The pros. All right, guys. Until next
Thank you
time,
very much. God bless, guys. Yes, sir.
get up, get after it, and get some.
Bitch, don't get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable.